Hello, everybody. It's Kristi. Greetings from a lovely, warm, and sunny Cologne. And hello to today, or this week's, I guess, or this episode of Kristi and Kevin's Happy Hour with my guest, Kevin, and our joint guest, Essence of Thought. So first of all, hi to Kevin and to Essence of Thought. Kev, do you want to say hello and tell a little bit about, why we're going to have our guest on, and then throw it back to me for the pub quiz question of the week.
Yes. Hello there to everybody. Especially fuck you to the chat. I think that's a little tradition we've got going on here. Yes. Today we've got on with us Essence of Thought, who was for a long time now one of my favourite sort of atheist, secular YouTubists and all the rest of it. But why don't I just allow him to introduce, or him or her? You're a trans now, I believe, aren't you? To introduce himself.
Gender fluid. You can't misgender me. Well, that's the joy. You can't misgender me.
That's a nice bonus. I haven't had that before. So
I say that to them, but of course I can kind of tell when someone's doing it out of hostility, sort of thing. They're still, still you want to punch them.
It's much like ContraPoints. I knew her, and I know you before like trans was a thing, a part of your public persona. So it's difficult to necessarily transition myself mentally.
We understand that. We understand normal, accidents, but yeah, we can identify hostility in tone. It's not like Jordan Peterson pretends where, oh my God, if you misgender a trans activist at all one time, that's it, you're sent off to the gulag in Canada.
Yes, but it's interesting given that apparently Bill C-16 was going to imprison him for daring to misgender people, and it hasn't. It's almost as if everyone that told him he was a liar was correct.
Almost as if his popularity is based on nothing.
Yes. Well, as you said in one of your recent videos, he gives, much like William Lane Craig and all of those people, he gives simple answers to simple people.
Mm-hmm.
Just on a really weird, can I just throw in a little personal anecdote from the side of somebody who's a friend of someone who's trans or knows people who are transitioning?
Did you just pull, I can't be racist, I've got a black friend?
No. This is more or less, I had this realization, and it was something that I remarked upon internally, but I thought it might be interesting to put out because maybe other people have had this experience as well. So somebody I know in my sort of like, real life outside of YouTube announced 2 years ago that he was trans and been on hormone. I guess I don't see him that often, but the last time I saw him, I was like, to myself, I was like, oh, he's hot. And that was just like for me it was a weird moment because having gone knowing him before he had sort of come out and transitioned, and yeah, I didn't find him attractive before. Now I'm like, that beard really, you're rocking that beard, that's hot. So yeah, so yes, kind of like as someone who is friends with a trans person and kind of experiencing it and going through it, there are changes for us too, and things that we kind of learn from and grow from and be challenged with, in terms of our perceptions of, he's always the great same person, but I'd never related to him like that before.
Well, I have to say that I didn't quite have that experience with ContraPoints because I liked her when I thought she was a he. He was beautiful, she is beautiful, gloriously so. And that's confusing for me, but never mind. Anyway, yes, enough of this, Mr. Goss. Peter, why don't you tell us a little bit about your channel?
Do we want the pub quiz? Oh yeah, sorry, we haven't even done his intro yet. Sorry.
Yes, apologies if your bit of fucking
uninterrupted this time
fluff doesn't get priority over introducing our incredibly special guest.
I'm sorry. Everything's so distracting. Yes, I am Peter. I also go by Ethel or Effie because some people don't seem to like Ethel. They see it as a little bit old as a name. I enjoy it. I am a gender fluid activist. I am a humanist. I don't say I'm a humanist because I'm not a feminist. I say I'm a humanist because that's the philosophy I base every political position I take. That includes my secularism, my feminist activism, my LGBT plus activism, and my support for ethnic rights activism. So it's sort of like the juncture point of all these sort of political positions comes through my humanism sort of thing. I do videos on YouTube. I've done religion for quite some time. I've also, of course, touched upon sexuality, gender. I have touched upon feminism, but to a lesser extent. I'm starting to make some changes on my channel in general towards more political topics, because whilst I'm still going to continue to do the religious stuff, I feel the arguments aren't really going anywhere. So I can do 1 or 2 of those videos a week and still do perhaps a more impactful video on contemporary politics as well. So yeah, that's a bit about myself. I currently live in India as well. I just graduated from university. I got a bachelor's in science in sociology, culture, and media. I moved to India with my partner for 4 years. I think it's been 4 years. I'll have to double check, otherwise I will be tortured. But yeah, so I'm just living in India, cooking alive slowly.
Well, and you're one of the more progressive British people to go and try and colonize India, so you've done okay doing it.
It was on invite, and I keep to myself pretty much. I actually went to my first Indian wedding the other week, which is very nice. So,
oh, that's very pleasant. Yeah.
Was it filled with people? I've heard that they're just like basically concerts with the crowd.
It should have been. There was quite a few people there. For our weddings, it was about, it's about the same as my mum's wedding, which happened just a month before. But sadly, there'd been a last minute change of venue on the groom's side of the family. They'd sort of demanded it and demanded a time change as well. So sadly, a lot of people couldn't turn up. So wasn't as many people as we expected.
Well, I mean, I don't know necessarily how closely you follow all of the Indian news, but we might get into later. I'll ask you about the current issues with rape in India, because that's quite a hot topic, isn't it?
It's not just the rape that's an issue. You've got the issues with they don't want to acknowledge rape on one hand, and on the other, they are super prudish. Like, if you kiss your partner on the metro, there was in Calcutta a recent event which had a young couple. They kissed each other on the metro, the underground rail, and they were dragged out and beaten by a mob because of that. So you've got these two sort of sides of, we can't talk about rape, but we're quite willing to beat and lynch, people who are just kissing. So
yeah, well, I'm glad you clarified that by metro you meant underground station. That wasn't like slang for the private part.
I'm sorry.
That would be bad, obviously. Yes, what was I going to say? Yes, Kristi. So we'll probably get into that a little bit later, possibly as well. But Kristi, you had some piece of
pointless knowledge
to while away the moments between now and the inevitability of death. So
yes, at a pub quiz, if you are asked the question, what is the name of the robot in the 1951 science fiction film classic, The Day the Earth Stood Still? With thanks again to paulsquiz.com for the question. So I guess we can put that out there and look in the chat and see if anyone knows the name of the
well, I should probably have fucking chat open, shouldn't I? Since I'm the person who's supposed to look at them. I'm going to guess Mohammed.
not Mohammed.
Goldberg. There's a very complicated family history going on there, but I don't know I don't know.
Well, some random geek, Jonathan in the chat has it. It's Gort, G-O-R-T.
Oh.
So
does that stand for anything? Is that an acronym?
That it's not on the pub quiz answer, so I couldn't tell you.
Oh well, that Robbie, what kind of intellectual?
I'm stunted intellectually on this topic.
Oh well, anyway, well, thank you for that, Kristi.
Of course.
I'm so reticent to do mine because all I could have got in my head is like sports trivia. That's it, and I know people aren't fucking interested. So.
No, they always have. They always have a sports category. And actually, at one of the pub quizzes I went to, they asked a question about what team has England not yet played this year in the cricket, and I knew the answer at the time because I'd actually been mildly following the cricket. So yeah, go ahead and put out your sports question.
Oh no, I don't have. I'm just saying, in general, I'm reticent to do that. I wasn't. I don't have one.
Oh, I thought you came up with one before.
Oh right, no. I just meant in general. I've just got sports like statistics. That's all I know. I mean, the fact that they have sports rounds and a pub quiz is the only reason I ever get invited to pub quizzes, because I cover that thing for the team. So that's that. Anyways, enough of this dribble, frankly. The reason I wanted to get Essence of Thought on, like I say, one of my favourite atheist secular YouTubers for a long time, and we were talking on Facebook the other day, and you've been wanting Peter to become more to get involved in more political stuff, and you felt that maybe in the past you'd allowed problematic political issues to drift by without wanting to mention them or talk about them, and I was wondering why you felt that was the case, why you took that route in the past, and why that might have changed now.
Yeah, I guess I should probably start out by noting the fact that my channel didn't start out on the topic of religion. My channel started out on the topic of sociology and social politics, you know. So I, over time, just sort of fell into this niche of religion because religion was my favorite topic in sociology. You know, beliefs in society was my favorite topic. And I just sort of fell into this little niche, you know, this little garden sort of thing that I could like tend to, and it was all good, it was all nice for a while. As we all know, it wasn't actually all well under the surface. It was just on, like, you know, the front of things, the face of things, it all seemed well. But we often, when like talking about events such as GamerGate, we often focus on the two primary sides, or if you can even call them two sides. There's actually a lot of different sides at play. But, you know, there were two primary fronts that we look at: those who were involved with the harassment of various journalists, particularly female journalists, and those who were trying to, you know, combat that, to, you know, to actually question what was being claimed to be seeking ethics in journalism, which was really just a mirage for the harassment that was sort of going on. But we don't think about why people on the sidelines who may want to speak out, who may want to discuss a topic, who may want to have their voice heard, why they find themselves not speaking out. Because as many great people have noted, all, you know, terrible things take to succeed, terrible people take to succeed is for good people, or if you can put them good people for to do nothing sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of guilt, I feel, in not speaking out on certain topics, GamerGate being one of them, but it isn't the only one.
Well, can I ask, I mean, obviously I get the impression that you weren't like pro GamerGate, which is odd as a construction of a sentence, because the gate is supposed to be the bad thing. Anyway, why did you feel that you either couldn't or didn't want to speak out at the time, and what brought you to the realization that maybe you should have?
Well, there was a lot of hostility towards anyone who sort of, I wouldn't say is part of the secular community, but almost the secular community has laid claim to, because there's the sort of idea that if you talk about the topic of like religion for so long, that this is the only topic you're allowed to talk to, even though that's ridiculous. It's patently ridiculous. It's your channel. You can talk about whatever the hell you want. But, you know, there will always be those people who react in a very hostile fashion if you begin to talk to about something else. There is a sort of mob mentality, a sort of don't rock the boat. We see this in a lot of communities, but in the secular community, there is a massive amount of that. And I have to acknowledge that there was a crossover with what we think of as the secular community and the GamerGate community. You know, there were many key figures that we can talk about, such as Thunderfoot, for example, who were fully within both communities, and their fans were sort of switching back and forth between said communities. You know, there was a fear of that hostility and a sense of almost self-preservation. You know, it's one thing to sort of go up against someone that it can be quite difficult if you've got used to a very comfortable sort of critique where, you know, you have this religious front, you're critiquing them, they're going to say terrible things about you. That's a given. But at least you got, you know, these people behind you sort of covering your back. And then the idea of discussing political topics and maybe losing that, I feel that there was a great fear on my part that this would sort of almost make my work on other topics far more difficult.
Yeah.
There was also added, sorry?
Yeah, go on, sorry.
There was also an added complication in the fact that I had just recently come out as trans, you know, and as much as I try to act like nothing sort of gets to me in that regard, when you first start coming out, even though I'd known for a very long time that I was trans, you know, I'd just come out recently, and the idea that I wasn't sort of ready to have that tested in quantities that I was seeing. You know, I was seeing the harassment campaigns going on with certain individuals. It's like, do I want that focused on me? And possibly, because I know that if I did get that same sort of critique, then my gender status is going to be like the go-to, or perhaps my mental health. You know, that's going to be the go-to sort of attack. And it was a new thing in a social interaction sort of front, so I wasn't really prepared at the time for that. So I felt I needed to sort of grow in that regard. And some of the ways that I sort of wanted to have my cake and eat it at the same time, some of the methods I used weren't pleasant. And looking back at it are things I fully regret doing, you know. You're right, I didn't agree with GamerGate. I verbally disassociated with them, but at the same time I tried to play this almost centrist point, you know. I tried to point out that I wasn't one of those feminists, you know, those feminists who, and then I'd throw out certain names. One of the most common was Anita Sarkeesian, and I'd throw them out. I would say I find their analysis, as you know, a social science student, I find their analysis to be half-baked, lacking, so and so, so and so. And I would justify this to myself, saying, well, yeah, you know, they're not really going into the depth that, you know, we're doing at university and sort of thing like that. But then as I began to grow and mature, I began to look back at that, and I began to see the reason Anita's, you know, videos don't read like a university essay or a journal article is because that's not their intention. You know,
Yeah,
the intended audience. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, it's a pop culture YouTube series. Yeah.
The intended audience was not academics. It was not university graduates. I mean, they were welcome to come in and participate, but Anita was doing something wonderful. She was trying to take a topic, a subject, a field that has predominantly been hidden behind, you know, this wall of academia. She tried to take just a portion of that and just make it accessible to people on the outside. Something, you know, people have congratulated me in the past on doing with certain studies, reviewing them, explaining at certain aspects, you know, certain things people have, you know, congratulated me on, and I've taken real pride in this, you know. But Anita was doing the exact same thing, and here I was attempting to use that great thing that she was doing, because it's not like her work destroyed any literature or anything that existed within the field of academia. All she was doing was presenting the topics in a general sense that made them engaging and informative to people who may not otherwise have access to said information. And, you know, looking at this in retrospect sort of brought down that entire excuse, brought down that response, and I began to see it for what it was. I was just throwing another generally decent person under the bus because it was almost an attempt to preserve myself, you know. It was a giveaway. If someone, because I did do a couple of videos on feminism, I did do one video on GamerGate, but that was only the Bouldergate controversy, because there was a trans character, even though there's been allusions to trans characters in, you know, the old original Baldur's Gate. But in the enhanced edition, a trans character was added, and there was a big controversy. Oh, you know, this is SJWs coming to infect everything, sort of thing. You know, but in that, and sorry.
Sorry,
I keep cutting you off. If you need to take a break and you need to explain, then go ahead. I'm getting ahead of myself, I think. Sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say I find it fascinating actually that listening to you talk, because one of the things we've touched on this show and on this channel before is the supposed the victim playing from the very people you're talking about, the kind of the members of the GamerGate community who are sort of intersected with the atheist community as it was. I mean, no such thing really exists anymore, but it did at the time. And the fact that they like to say that they're being silenced in some way, or that the social penalties for speaking out on certain issues are far too strict, and the Overton window needs to be opened and all the rest of it. Whereas yourself, as well, not even just as a trans person, but as a person in general, were being felt that you had to silence yourself for fear of the backlash from these people. And so essentially they're enforcing their own version of political correctness, which is political incorrectness, of course, and really quite harsh bullying. They're forcing that on other people, including trans people, because, like you say, they would have attacked you for being trans as the primary go-to attack source. But like I say, yeah, they're forcing people into silence, which is the de facto censorship, as it were, for having a different opinion on that particular topic, which I think is an interesting thing that they should reflect on.
If I could just jump in. So the one question is going to be Kevin's question to you on the irony of political incorrectness silencing you. And then if you could answer a second question from me, which is, it's not really a question so much as, it's not a question, but a remark. This is what people do at conferences, and then they waft on for 15 minutes. I'm not going to do that. I'm impressed with the amount of self-reflection you have in the way that you used people who were unpopular at the time and critiques that would go over well, thinking, like you said, you felt at the time that you were fully behind it, but you've done self-reflection, and I'm really impressed with that, and the fact that you are, own what you did and recognize the flaw in it and acknowledge it now and are saying it publicly. I just want to sort of commend you for, I guess it's not really a question, but commend you for, because it's not a process people talk about a lot, usually because it's very embarrassing and painful to open up about these things. It's embarrassing enough when you realize you've done something like that, then let alone to go and talk about it with other people that you know and trust, or even further on the internet. So I wanted, if you could just maybe speak a little bit more to that process too, once after you've answered Kevin's question.
Okay. Well, with the enforcing political incorrectness, it wasn't just a case of I didn't want to speak. I wrote many scripts, I recorded many videos, and I've expressed both on Facebook and Twitter and to Kevin, I expressed to you directly that this video now, the one with Jordan Peterson, whilst I started out with the confidence I'd usually start out with a video on religion, as that clock was ticking down, I was starting to feel the heat. I was starting to feel nervous, even though, when we talked about it, we pointed out the facts that the worst that was going to happen was I make a bad argument. But the problem is then that bad argument can become associated with me, or it can drive traffic towards me from certain areas. And as you know, it's not valid criticism. That's the thing that I'm afraid of. I've been critiqued here, forever. Since the beginning of my channel, I've been critiqued. There was a massive back and forth one summer between me and Lotta Ieva, which had a lot of their fans coming over trying to, critique him, etc. I can deal with critique, but it was the idea of constantly having people drill in notions that aspects of your identity or your mental health, that these cheapen you, that these lessen you. Having that drilled in time and time and time again can eventually build up, and it can make you afraid of things. It was a genuine sense of terror on what could happen. It may have been slightly over the top, channel size, who is likely to notice me. I did critique a couple of people like TJ, but only on topics I knew I could Fort Knox my argument on, which is kind of funny because I get a lot of backlash saying that my videos on feminism, etc., because again, they've been here now and then, not on the topics I wish I'd spoken out on, but in general, sort of explaining what feminism is, as well as defending some of the basic principles, you know, people come along and say, well, you've let yourself go. The first video, I brought in my heavy referencing style. You know, I say heavy referencing style, I mean heavy referencing style for YouTube videos. You know, the first video I started doing that with was my video response to TJ on the wage gap. You know, talking on these topics have fundamentally allowed me to grow in many ways. And yet I'm still afraid to talk about those topics. I'm still afraid to go to certain subjects that I feel the backlash it may draw, you know, may cause some extreme drain on me as a person. So I don't know if that answers your question on this.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, thanks for that. That was a good elucidation on the topic. And I think, like I say, that's something they should really reflect on if they're going to be intellectually honest. And I say that knowingly, in the sense that I know they're not going to. They should. On the basis that the arguments they make about being censored themselves or not being able to approach certain topics is hypocritical bullshit. But anyway, as to Kristi's question that wasn't a question, that might have been a question that wasn't a question.
Yes, about the going on to the sort of reflection process.
Yeah.
There have been a lot of great people that have helped me. Johnny Scaramanga was one. I don't know if you've ever heard of Johnny Scaramanga. Johnny Scaramanga he's an atheist. He does talks on like the humanist loop. He was raised in what's known as Christian accelerated education. It's like creationism in the UK. That's actually a global initiative.
That sounds fucking terrifying. What the hell is that?
It is. You know, it's sort of thing that teaches the Loch Ness monster is actually a plesiosaur, young earth creationism sort of thing. They can ask questions in history about how, you know, I forget their name, the people who first achieved powered flight, the brothers?
The Wright brothers.
The Wright brothers, how they managed to achieve flight. It's a history question, and it says with devotion to God is the answer.
Well, I've heard about the concept of God raising you up, but I thought that was a metaphorical thing rather than literal fucking powered flight.
It's literally the answers to questions with the devotion and guidance of God. That's how they were able to, you know, successfully achieve powered flight.
Well, in that case, that's brilliant, because that makes education much easier, because the answer to every question is through devotion to God.
There's a lot of questions that answer that way.
How does osmosis work? Through the devotion of God. Yeah.
It teaches humanism as like one step away from cannibalism. There's like drawings which depict a woman standing in like a kitchen with like a protest sign. There's a dog with an empty bowl, its child with an empty plate. She's got all these books which come from Mark and other, you know, different social justice writers scattered about, cobwebs because she hasn't dusted. It's like, this is the chaos that the New World Order's bringing in, sort of thing. And it's like, this is actually taught to children. And like, I feel sorry for them, because there are only, I think, 4 universities in the UK that will even consider because there's a point system involved at university level. Like, there's only 4 universities in the UK. I know Nottingham is one of them, because that shocked me, because that was my second choice. There's 4 universities in the UK that will consider you with the points you've got from this. And it's only on certain topics as well.
Yeah, there shouldn't be
theology.
Well, there shouldn't be any. There should be absolutely no universities that take those points at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and it's not just the questions involved, it's also how they mark. The teachers don't mark you. Literally, you're given an assignment, certain pages to certain page. You write out the answers. You've got these little booths that you write in. Like, these children like segregated like office booths almost. Like, it's a table and it's got screens either side. Right. So you isolated, you're completely on your own, you're working, you do all the answers, then you take this to another area, you get the answers, you check your answers, and literally there's no actual corrective process involved to explain the answers. It's just mechanical. You think about it, you write down an answer, You go get a sheet which tells you the answers, and you replace your wrong answers. That's literally how they test things.
Well, yay Christianity. Anyway,
And so Johnny Scaramanga visited our university, did a talk at our university, and I was the one who was sort of rushing them between like the station and also to like they were staying at the Union overnight, so I was like making sure they got to where they needed to be. And the topic came up of the Nisa Sarkeesian, and I pointed out I was a feminist, but I wasn't one of those feminists, and he didn't give me the response I expected. Because when someone asks me, what do I think about the secular community and this whole GamerGate thing and their involvement with all of that, I am almost expecting them to be on the side that GamerGate is righteous and feminism is like an evil. So I automatically would default to that sort of defense. Oh, well, I am a feminist, but I'm not one of those feminists here. Nisa Sarkeesian, terrible, bad person. And they called me out on it very quickly. And they didn't, get angry, didn't get anything like that. They just explained to me how a lot of what I was saying was missing the point of her videos. And, I should go back and I should view them again under the context of what they were intending to achieve. And I did that. I went back, I did that, and I just then sort of dropped out the conversation altogether. I just didn't use it as defense. I didn't broach the subject or anything. I didn't really own up to myself that I'd made this mistake, but I sort of stopped making the mistake. Right. Then later down the line, I started watching reflective pieces. Like there's a great series by Innuendo Studios called Angry Jack. Yes. And it's a dissection of many aspects of online toxic masculinity in particular. And, GamerGate comes up and he discusses that quite extensively. And I found it saying the same thing. And at that point, I just had to sort of admit to myself that, I was wrong on this. I was saying things just to not necessarily remain popular, but just to spare myself. Spare myself from personal attack. And that sort of got me wondering, was I the only sort of one that had done that? And, if there were more people that had been like that, what happens if we had all chosen to sort of speak up rather than just sort of remain silent or even throw her under the bus even further? Yeah. I'm not under any delusions. She doesn't know I exist. She doesn't know what I said. But that doesn't deal with the sort of guilt I feel myself. And
it's less about how that would have impacted her directly and more how the discussion within a broader community would have worked. Yeah.
And then this was sort of compacted very recently because the whole situation with the TERFs, that's the trans exclusionary radical feminists, as they like to call themselves, has blown up and pretty much
just sort of borderline fascist scum, as I like to call them, but whatever.
They pretty much want to legislate trans people out of existence, and they use the title feminism to sort of get around it. That they use the same panic techniques as the Christian right has always used against homosexuality, but they just apply it to trans people these days.
Well, exactly. Yeah. We can't allow them to use the toilets because they'll rape the children. Yeah.
But it's been disheartening to see that even certain other communities within the LGBT plus umbrella have signed up to them. It's not a new thing. It's just been a sort of resurgence of something old. Back to the original Christopher Street Day rallies, there were TERFs present who wanted to get rid of trans people because they believed one hand that, trans people are too much for society to accept. We need to get rid of them to, make our job easier. And then there was also a portion forwarding this notion of what they called, I can't remember, covert rape. That was it, covert rape. And this was the idea that if a trans person doesn't give you their entire medical history, before you have sex with them, that is akin to rape. And that the idea was cis guys were using trans to get into and invade lesbian spaces. That was the position. Thankfully, that's a position that's sort of decreased over time, but there has been a resurgence of it in both the UK and the US. And different feminist groups have been, asked to speak out on the topic. And without missing a beat, when Anita and Feminist Frequency, sort of came into the spotlight on this issue, there was a minor delay, which any organization has, but when you consider that, without a beat, they just came out and they just said, yes, we stand with trans people. If you don't like it, then we're sorry, but we cannot accept your transphobic narratives.
Yeah,
and
it's good. It's good to see not only that, but you mentioned in the Jordan Peterson video, the British Labour Party did a very similar thing as well, and it's good to see that more mainstream people and political groups rejecting this nonsense. Because on the face of it, they do this thing where essentially they try and put moral pressure, like you said, the kind of the Christian panic technique on people, and it's very easy with public relations to say, okay, let's just let's protect the children and all this fucking shit, even though they're not under any danger. But it's good to see the political pushback, that they're not just accepting this nonsense.
But seeing that as someone who had not only just stood by and remained relatively silent, but had actually actively used Anita as a punching bag, as someone I could throw out in front of the bus just sort of to distract things away from me. To then see Anita, because Anita did this, Feminist Frequency posted their thing, and Anita did it as well on her own Twitter feed. Come out and give a full call of support, of solidarity for trans people, which includes myself. At that moment, it went from I was wrong to I feel like an absolute shitbag. The sort of differences in response. And that's.
But this is a point I made to you in a discussion on Facebook, which prompted this hangout. Is that you needn't feel too terrible about it, and obviously you can't help but feel the way you feel, of course. But you can't, and it might sound like an empty platitude, but it's so correct. You can't change what's happened. It's gone. It's in the past. All you can try and do is, well, you can apologize, obviously, to the person you've wronged, and you can just attempt to try and correct that behavioral mistake. You okay?
Again, yeah, sorry, it's just taking me a while to collect my thoughts and just line them up, sort of thing.
Well, you're not right for the internet if you're going to try and actually, compose yourself and come out with some.
Yeah. I am,
and bigotry. That's the way it works on the internet. Come on now.
I am terribly sorry for the way that I use these people. Again, they have no idea that I probably even existed, but I wasn't just apathetic in a climate of such undue hostility that these people faced. I was feeding into that. I was helping construct the narrative. I was doing the legwork for the people who wanted to use said narrative. And I am truly sorry to Anita Sarkeesian for that. I'm truly sorry for everyone who works at Feminist Frequency and the few other people that I used to drop now and then. Because there are a couple of other small YouTubers who used to pop up now and then, do certain things, say certain things, and then, of course, will drop down. Like, of course, the whole thing with, I forget their name, the woman with the red hair.
Oh, yes, Chanty Binks.
Yes, Binks. I was like checking their Twitter feed. It's like that one video that has been seen so many millions of times doesn't do their person justice. It was a glimpse of how they were on a day. I have anxiety issues, and whilst anxiety can manifest itself as fear, dread, stuff like that, if you feel anxious in certain situations, you sort of become angry at the fact that you're being disempowered, and that can result in genuine anger. I don't know how they felt on the day. So
exactly, and not just that, but I mean, I've talked to the guy called Dan Perrins, who's the main chap she's talking to on the day, and he is a fucking infuriating
Also,
nasty.
we don't see the rest of the conversation. We don't see what else they've said to them.
Yeah, you just see the
one
snippet of her sounding like an angry, terrible person. And like you say, it's one snippet of one conversation on one day. She might have just been having a bad day. Yeah. So, and it's terrible, isn't it? That's going to be the way she's remembered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
if we're, rather than getting too maudlin about it, let's move on to more positive progression.
Mm-hmm.
You've recently put out 2 videos about Jordan Peterson. They were absolutely excellent, I thought.
The first one wasn't so much on Peterson himself. It was more on his fans.
But his ideas, let's say, and his questionable intellectual integrity. What drew you to Peterson's Peterson as a force, as it were, and why you felt that you needed to make those videos as some of the first sort of baby steps into the political realm of YouTube?
This is my amazing explanation as to why I started with Jordan Peterson. I was asked to during a Q&A during our channel, on our channel. It's literally it. Me and Udita were doing a little happy Q&A on our channel, and Jordan Peterson as a name kept coming up again and again and again and again. So I sort of said, okay, I've been looking for a window in, an opportunity. This way, at least if some of my subscribers get a little funny, I can go, hey, my subscribers were the ones who asked for this. So,
nice.
But yeah, that is
always an escape hatch, definitely.
But yeah, it just seemed to be the right thing because I've seen people talking about him so much, and it's like not a day goes by when you don't see the name online these days, sort of thing. So it's like, okay, I'm going to watch some of their Q&As. I'm going to download and watch several of their lectures. That's what I did. And then, of course, the fatal flaw on the left, American leftism came out, and it made some points that I thought, you know what? It's a shorter video. I feel it demonstrates a lot of issues with Peterson's general work. So I thought, this is actually a good place to start. And then began the process of working on that video for a couple of weeks, which is why during which I got sent the article of a Christian fundamentalist using Jordan Peterson's arguments to try and argue against same-sex marriage. And I thought, actually, you know what? This I can do very quickly. That'll give me more time to work on the other Jordan Peterson video because I was recording and re-recording. So I sort of, I went with that one. And it's something I plan to stick with. I've already got a video for next Saturday dealing with someone who is claiming that social justice warriors are responsible for every problem in society. And
isn't that just Jordan Peterson's whole shtick?
Pretty much.
Well, yeah, it's fascinating to me because obviously we're 3 atheists in the room, and Jordan Peterson literally claims that we're not atheists. That atheism.
Oh yes.
He's a fascinating creature. Why do you think, though? And it might be something of a leading question, but why do you think that what was the atheist community and so much of it's sort of the reactionary end of that, the kind of people we've talked about who were involved in GamerGate, why do you think they have been happy to ignore his Christian presuppositional bullshit and accept him into their arms, even though he literally, denies their existence, basically?
So I guess it's pretty much the same reason that Nazis are quite happy to accept a token Jew now and then, and racists are quite happy to date black people now and then. They sort of go through these steps to justify themselves, and it's also they see that they're gaining more than they're losing. These people very often talk about the way that, oh, I agree with them on their political stance, but I think their stance on religion is absolute garbage. So you think, okay, you believe yourself to be able to argue against them on the topic of religion. But when I asked them, okay, what is it about their political views specifically, like specific points, like the C-16 bill, for example, do you find to be good? and they never get back to me. I've noticed that they never get back to me with specifics. It's just he's one of us. That seems to be the sole reason they so much tout him.
Which is ironic because you showed in your response to his Big Think video, the problems with the American left, that he goes on about how terrible it is that the left do tribalism, and yet he is the absolute ultimate example of a sort of tribal leader on the right.
It is defend them at any cost, sort of thing, you know. Yeah, this is. I was talking to Kristi at the start, and we were just talking out the way that Peterson really doesn't like to be pinned down on any specific position, you know. So I guess that also makes it easier for atheists to sort of come out and defend him, because they can sort of say he's wifty-wafty Christian, if you will. I've even seen atheists who have outright denied that he's Christian. Deconverted Man, I believe, was one who went after, I think, Godless Engineer, who called him out as a Christian. So, you know,
well, I think you said really well in your video the slipperiness of him. Like you say, he doesn't like to be held down to a position, which is very Christian fundy of him, where you'll say he'll start off by saying the left and then morphs into cultural Marxism, or as he describes it, was equity Marxism or whatever.
Egalitarian Marxism is his buzzword. In ContraPoints, the one that ContraPoints was responding to, it was identity politics Marxism. He doesn't seem to be set on even picking like this different version of a cultural Marxist. But it seems no matter what, you can't use cultural Marxism anymore because it's been tainted by the Nazis. So, you know, he's wise enough to pick up on that, which makes me think that his whole charade that, oh, we've accounted for it, it's like, no, you haven't.
Well, Kristi, as you've not said anything, god damn it, thoughts on Peterson as well, he is a professor, so let's just go with fellow intellectual.
Well, one of the things I wanted to bring up, because it's appearing a lot in my comments, and you're talking about his fans and how they talk about him and how they talk. And maybe, Kevin, you've seen this too, if I point it out, but people will quote, I think it's Rule 9, about listening to other points of views. And I think actually people in the progressive community can almost sort of weaponize that piece of propaganda against Peterson and do little call outs like, Rule 9, call this video is critiquing Peterson on this issue. And it would basically be a way to bring his people in. And he's already instructed them to listen to the other sides of stories. So we could tailor discussions to point out his flaws.
I know you've barely spoken, but I should interrupt you just to clarify what Rule 9 is. It's from his books. He's got a book about 12 rules for life. And Rule 9 was assume that someone else, the person you're talking
to, more than you.
Might know more about you than you. Which, like you say, can be turned back on him because he dismisses other people as, oh, you're a progressive, cultural, social Marxist, egalitarian, blah, 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 blah. And just dismisses them out of hand. When if he followed his own rules, he would actually have to listen to them.
Yeah, no, I just think it'd be funny if we would sort of troll his fans slightly, but also use it as an opportunity to have them exposed to critiques of him if we just hashtagged Rule 9 into our video titles as a bit of a theme and get it going every time someone does something that is an evaluation of Peterson, just hashtag Rule 9 on it.
There's also something that I noted in my video, which was he got asked the Jewish question on stage, and
I did see that.
Someone asked him the Jewish question on stage, and they invoke the Rule 9, and he says that, yes, I'm going to read the book, I'm going to give this Nazi propaganda piece time and actually listen to it. So he's willing to listen to Nazis, but critique from groups outside the radical right, apparently that's just worth dismissing.
Well, that's the thing. I think you pointed out quite nicely and far more generously than I would have done, that his refusal to accept that he has that far right fan base, and I'm not saying that's all of his fans, of course not, but a great many of his fanboys are really quite, like you say, radical right people. It's so dishonest of him.
Three Arrows used a completely different clip of someone else asking him the Jewish question. Like, This hasn't just come up once. This has come up again and again and again. And what people didn't seem to understand was I wasn't angry that, like, on stage he refused to answer the Jewish question, because he has answered the Jewish question both in the Q&A clip that I played, and also he's done like a video and a blog on it now, apparently. You know, I know he's answered the Jewish question. The anger comes at the fact that he didn't take that opportunity there and then to, quote, as he puts it, box in the Nazis, you know.
Yeah, exactly. He claims that the right have hived off the Nazis as this fringe group, and they haven't. They've been more than happy to A, play useful idiots to them, and B, use them as useful idiots themselves, in a sense, to sort of add weight to the numbers of subscribers and money coming in and all the rest of it.
And there's a reason Heather Heyer, who was murdered at the Unite the Right rally, had to be buried in secret. You know, she had to be buried in secret to stop the Nazis coming and destroying, you know, desecrating her grave. So.
Yeah, I think that's a horrific but very good point, yes.
And hasn't Peterson also criticized people on the progressive side of politics that our ideology is inherently about not talking to people? And yet, you know, when you have, you know, situations like, I understand morally why people wouldn't want to sit up on a stage with Richard Spencer and dignify him with their presence and credibility. But I can't think of any person that Peterson has not been able to talk to, or is actually, you know, even engaged with really on a progressive position, that they said they wouldn't talk to him, or they refused to talk to him. I've never heard any named names in these situations.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone particularly either, no.
So who is he talking about when he characterizes?
Well, again, it's that vague, nebulous other. You know,
it's like when he says,
not holding it down to a specific person or group. It's the Marxists, the postmodernists, the progressives.
It's almost like when he was talking about the C-16 bill, he said that, you know, if they tried to fine me, I wouldn't pay the fine, and if they tried to arrest me, I starve myself in prison. You know, it's a way for him to earn points by, and this is the irony, playing the victim.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, they are. The idea that these people are silenced, like you say, you never go. A day doesn't go by when you don't hear from Peterson or his fanboys. If you're never silent, how are you being silenced?
It reminds me of the the recent video with the duct tape.
Oh God! Oh yeah! Oh, that actually. Well, on that point, and I know this is now going to be buried in the news. I was going to be going to that event tomorrow, as it is, but unfortunately, I now won't be able to, which is really.
I'm really disappointed.
Yeah, I was going to go if I was in the country.
What was that? Sorry.
I was planning on going if I was in the country, but then I found out the date, and it's like I'm still in India, so I can't go.
Well, that's no excuse. That's no excuse. India's like, it's just around the corner, isn't it? I think. I don't know. Anyway,
Indian food doesn't take long to get there. It's like takes 15 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I hope people will upload videos of it. You know, I hope that you can maybe do a little call out. People should go and record and see what happens that day. Yeah. Don't make any trouble.
The point I made in yesterday's about these people is I will be making in response to them at some point, but I'd like to have made it to their faces on camera. That would have been fun.
Have you seen the mustache version?
No.
Yes.
There is a version of them tearing off the duct tape, and underneath it reveals they all have little black Hitler mustaches. And it's just especially with Stephen Molyneux's face. Like, he's got such an angry fucking face on him. It's just like the Hitler mustache. Just
that is a lot of fun.
The internet is great.
That little face he pulls is so funny. God.
I'm going to be angry. This is my angry face.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I also mentioned to Kristi before the hangout started. One thing I absolutely loved and kept me going throughout my response of Peterson was just how much joy I got from speaking over Peterson talking. Like, Peterson in that left video is pulling such angry faces, like his arm expression sort of thing. You know, as I'm just talking, it's just like funny watching the difference between my tone of voice and the way he expresses himself. You know, this is just, yeah.
Well, one of my favourite videos I ever did, not because it's actually that good, but just because it's kind of mocking, is I watched a 9-hour stream thing that was done by this fucking Nazi wanker called Back to Alaska. And he said nothing of any worth. So what I did was just clip together the bits of him. There was several bits where he's just walking down the street in silence. And so I just clipped those together and put some words over the top explaining what a Nazi prick he is. So he literally didn't say anything in the video. And I enjoyed that enormously. It was like robbing him of his nonsense.
That's the thing. That's the great ability to review a position or a person at a distance.
Yes.
You know, critiques don't have to be in person at the time, which is just, oh God. I know this is kind of a tangent to talking about the extreme right, Christian right, you know, but I've recently also critiqued certain individuals in the Daoist community in the UK, which is the Islamic communities in the UK, the apologetics community specifically. And like I explain in the video, I'm in India. Okay, I'm critiquing a person who regularly turns up at Hyde Park, you know, Speaker's Corner in the UK. And they keep on demanding I go to him in person. It's like, I live in India. This is one of my leading points. It's just, oh.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned in the Peterson video, when he demands, you know, these huge studies from people, and
On
just
the spot,
internet talking, and like, what you expect them to just have all of this to hand immediately? What a load of nonsense! Especially when he's questioned about it, and he doesn't provide those things either. It's nonsense.
I mean, like, the example I used was him being asked about does he do enough to disassociate himself from Nazis, and he's like, oh, so, you know, to do that you have to first of all present a study that shows that I have a higher proportion, that they're taking my work and using it to justify their atrocities and all of this. And then he goes on Big Think to accuse the left of apparently having a bigger, you know, extremism problem than the right. And it's like,
yeah, but exactly. Not just that, but his examples and his fans' examples are always like, oh, well, this woman on Tumblr with purple hair said a thing. And, well, am I supposed to take that as fucking academic source, am I? What nonsense.
Also, I mean, it's not hard to disassociate yourself from Nazis. Just say, you're right. You know what? If there's anybody in my audience, I'm going to make a video and I'm going to say, fuck Nazis, fuck white supremacists. These are disgusting ideas. Go away if you have them. Until you change your mind, you're not a fan of mine. And it literally be that video. That's all you have to do. I mean, who wouldn't do that?
Someone who's happy to take money from Nazis.
He's got a weak-ass disclaimer on the side of his Twitter, and it's like, that just fuck all. You know, it's this whole thing.
That's almost worse than just totally ignoring it. That's that's like a sarcastic, like a slap in the face. Like, oh, I'm just going to put this little arse-covering piece of nonsense out there. It's insulting to my intelligence.
It's like, we don't want wifty-wafty. We want specifics. We want him to call out certain ideologies. We want him to acknowledge what they did and why they did it, not make up his own fabricated reasons. Oh, all the Nazis were just mentally ill, as seems to be his argument, as Three Arrows pointed out. He really has the habit of doing that. Anyone he sees as doing anything bad, specifically on the right, he just writes off as mentally ill. You know, he can't even consider that people can have genuine but terrible reasons for what they do. It's just,
he's excusing the crimes of the right and putting you know, intense pathology on the left all the time, every single time.
Well, actually, that did come up in the pre-show hangout, which, you know, Kevin, if you didn't turn up 3 minutes before we went on air, you would have been able to.
Whoa. Turning up 3 minutes before we go on air is still turning up on time. So
show up 5 minutes early, you're late.
No. Kristi, for start off, you sent the clip 15 minutes before, and I specifically want 14 minutes before.
Actually, you checked the timestamp. It was 14 minutes before.
Well, I didn't check that.
I was 1 minute late.
So it pulled me out there, and I'm going to walk
home.
between my legs.
That's what happens when you take on a social scientist.
And Peter's probably thinking, what in the fuck are these dickheads talking about? I don't understand that.
I'm just a social justice wizard, so I'm always on time.
Amazing. Well, I'm a social justice mage, so I just turn up. Never.
But we were talking about the fact that he does say, you know, the people on the left are basically mentally ill. I think that was the point that you were...
It's not just on the left, it's on the right as well. Anyone he disagrees with is like... in the fatal flaw on the left, one thing I didn't pick up on is he calls it pathological extremism, or pathological. I'm getting tongue twisted here. You know, he turns it into a disease rather than just genuine people who have gone horribly wrong in what they've learned and what they've picked up throughout their life. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, and it's a way to discredit. You know, people that follow him. Well, if they take on that point of view, well, one, it's dehumanizing, and two, it's an attempt to render all of their arguments not worth listening to, or somehow poorly constructed, well, poisoning, as it were, which goes against Rule 9. So that's kind of weird.
Yeah, Rule 9, motherfucker. Anyway, yeah, and
Rule
I think
13: assume nobody is pathological.
Yes.
And Peter pointed out in his video about Peterson that oh fucking hell, I've forgotten now. I'm now thinking Rule 13, and I know that's not. I've totally lost the plot of what I was going to say. What did you say, Kristi? That sparked my...
Rule 9.
No, it's gone. It's gone. Never mind.
See, no, it happened to you finally.
What section was it in? Do you remember what section it was in?
Well, the section of my mind that was functioning briefly that no longer is. It's gone. And on that note, on that bombshell, should we draw a curtain on this? Otherwise, very pleasant, but ultimately, hour-long happy hour. Yeah.
This has been really, really lovely. And yeah, you're right. I think we could go on for ages, but it is a happy hour, as Kevin points out.
It's a happy hour, and I'm sick of Kristi's insistence on mission creep all the time. Hours and hours and hours. Happy hour.
I've been watching the chat, and there haven't been any questions, but just hello to people in the chat. How you doing?
No, fuck the people in the chat. The people in the chat are dicks. I've said this before.
All right, so then I have to do my wrap-up thing. So, yeah, do you want to tell Essence of Thought, where people they have the link to your channel, but yeah, your two most recent videos were about the Peterson fans and about Jordan Peterson. They can check those out on your channel.
Oh, not too most recent. I think there was like a couple of videos in between the one on Peterson's fan.
Last one was Frank Turek.
Yes, no, the Frank Turek one just came out today. Before that was Peterson. Then there was another one on Twitter, and then it was another.
Whoa! Time out. So you corrected me to say that I was correct.
I lost.
Right. And Kevin, what's your most recent video?
I can't fucking remember. I don't remember my own videos. Jesus. I put out a copy of yesterday's hangout we did with Rollins and Shires, the Shire horse himself. And before that, I did my latest episode of Kev on Rick and Morty.
Yeah, go watch that. Hey, I think for season 2, you should bring Michael and I on to like do a hangout about the episodes. We'll watch them beforehand.
What I was gonna possibly do is like a hangout at the end of each series, and we can talk about the series.
Oh, that'd be good.
Something I thought would be quite nice.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right, so go check out those 2 videos on Kevin's channel.
Yeah.
So guys, then until next time, I've been Kristi. You all have been awesome. People in the chat have been awesome. People in the future watching this later are awesome. In the future tense.
No.
And goodbye from me, and goodbye from everyone else. Say goodbye, everyone.
Take care.
No, you've got to say goodbye. Say goodbye, Kevin. That's the line.
Say goodbye, Kevin.
Goodbye, Kevin.
I refuse. I have taken back goodbying and shared them with the people.
He's liberated the goodbyes. Okay, there we go. We got it. Peer pressure in the end. Woohoo! Bye, everyone.